Hello and welcome to Kemet Capital, the community of holders and seekers of African capital. I'm your host, JS, and as usual in this community, we start with our word of affirmation, our guiding principle, the Common Douglas production function. On our way to make Africa great again, you guys already know, in my opinion, it's through economic strength, economic power, and in order for us to achieve that strength and power, we need to produce more in a more efficient way. So today we're going to react to this video, which is pertaining to the total factor of productivity, which is the change in output, not from input. All right, let's jump into this video that I wanted to share with you guys. You guys will let me know what you think. We can comment together as we go along. If you'll show up, there you go. All right, it's a video from CNBC Africa, one of my favorite news outlet, at least for Africa financial information. The other guys, they only worried about politics, war, and bad news. So if you want like unfiltered opinions about African capital and the financial market in general in Africa, in my opinion, CNBC Africa, it's one of the main outlet out there. You guys will tell me in the comment if there's anybody else that you think about. All right, let's jump into the video and see what it's about.
Digital Academy is fast becoming a cornerstone in Africa's digital transformation journey, with Rwanda, Benin, Togo, and Senegal leading as the first regional classes. As the interoperability project kicks off within the year, it's more than a skills initiative. It signals Africa's commitment to harmonized digital policy, inclusive innovation, and regional integration. CNBC Africa spoke to CEO Lassina Kone for more.
A lot of people talk in Africa about potentials. No country is ranked based on the potential.
All right, guys, before we jump in, this is Lassina Kone, Chief Executive Officer of Smart Africa. And Smart Africa, spearheaded by the government of Rwanda and the International Telecommunication Union, ITU. It's based in Kigali, in Rwanda, with over 30 countries members of the organization. The aim of Smart Africa is to promote information, communication, and communication technology-driven economic growth, enable affordable access to broadband for all, foster innovation and entrepreneurship, create a digital single market in Africa, which, in my opinion, is critical for our future. That single market, and if we can do that digitally, that will be awesome and amazing. And it also aims to bridge the digital divide and promote digital inclusion. So that's one. Those are the aim of Smart Africa, and the area of focus of the entity is policy harmonization across countries. So we don't want a policy in Nigeria different from the policy, let's say, in Senegal, in Cameroon, South Africa. We want all those policies to be harmonized for a better integration of the single market that the African continent can be. Another area of focus is digital infrastructure development, e-government, and e-services. Through your phone, you're able to, I don't know, pay your taxes, submit a request for an official document like a passport or national identity card. So, project like that, Smart is very involved. They're also involved in skills development and digital literacy, support for tech and startups and innovation hubs, cybersecurity, and that data product protection frameworks. So, all in all, that's basically what Smart do. Very important entity for the future of the continent, especially in the context of digitalization. So let's see what Lassina Kone has to say.
We need to unlock those potential, then it becomes unlocking opportunity. So Djibouti invest is very important. It's very pivotal because if you look at the geographically, the competitive advantage that Djibouti has, I'm talking in my ecosystem in terms of positioning, and they have over 10 submarine cable passing through Djibouti, where those submarine cables can serve Africa. So it actually positioned Djibouti as a really digital hub, and instead of saying a port hub I would say, a digital hub for Africa. So it aligned exactly with the Smart Africa vision, which is accelerating digital transformation. If every single country in Africa, we try to use our competitive advantage together in a harmonized way, we can go really, really far.
Indeed, and
Totally
looking at
agree.
that competitive advantage in terms of, working with African governments to help structure public-private partnerships, that can fast-track the digitization of ports and logistics and even other critical infrastructure. What are we likely seeing you do here?
Public-private partnership is extremely important.
All right, guys, we're going to stop here for a minute because, as you guys already know, we had a video where we discussed PPP, public partnership. It's actually good when you hear it at first, but it's better when it's locally sourced capital, locally sourced partnerships. If we have to involve foreigners, in my opinion, that's not a good strategy because at the end of the day, we become we stay at the mercy of providers of capital, and if those providers are foreigners, the intentions are not always the best or aligned to what we want to do on the continent. That's just my 2 cents.
Economy in Africa, even elsewhere, they built by private sector.
True, built by private sector, but national, domestic private sector, not foreign private sector. Guys, we need to stop that idea that people to develop our country to make us richer. It has to be local. It has to be national entities.
I think it's time for Africa to actually empower our private sector using a PPP, public-private
Our
partnership.
power sector.
That's why Smart Africa, the foundational process of Smart Africa itself, going from a concept note to a blueprint, go to the pilot. From pilot, we look at the bankability of the project, and we actually pass it on through a government concession to private sector. That is in our DNA. That's the reason we're encouraging already public-private partnership.
And another thing that's hampering us in Africa is that there's no really implementation. There's a lot of policy. We discuss a lot on, but in terms of power, we're not, implementing those policies. They need to be implemented. This guy is talking big game about harmonization, but if it's only on paper and nothing is actually tangible, nothing is actually physical, there's not a physical transformation or change or structural change from those policies. If it's just all verbiage somewhere in some legal paper that, oh, it's actually what we intend to do, but we don't do that in practice, it defeats the purpose. So, in my opinion, we should be focused on implementation of those policies, which are great. Those are actually great when you read it on paper. It's actually great. Single market for the entire continent. That's more than 1 billion individuals. So, if that market is harmonized in terms of digitalization, that's an amazing growth prospect for any entities, for any enterprises in Africa. But again, those policies they need to be implemented. And when we talk about the entire continent, all those nations having to work together to implement those policies, knowing the colonial background that we have with some of the French colonies still at the mercy of the French, policymakers in France. It'll be difficult for us to harmonize within Africa to make us strong because those people they don't want us to make us strong. They don't want us to see us strong. They don't want to see us strong. My bad. All right, let's continue.
These apply to every single technology we do in terms of emerging. Once we test it in a country, because usually the flagship are actually led by country, nationally, and sometimes the blueprint when you put together is for national use and also customized for continental use. That's where actually the private sector can chip in and actually take it to the next level.
And that also brings the aspect of a policy harmonization. And when you say policy harmonization, do we even understand the kind of policies that we have in place?
That's a very,
That's a great
it's a
question.
very tricky
It's a great
question.
question.
But let me tell you this: why
Oops, my
policy
bad.
harmonization? China is China today is because of the scale, 1.5 billion. America is 350 million populations. Europe is close to 400 million. For us to present ourselves to the investor, not just a single market like Kenya around 50 million, Ghana around 30 million, Nigeria around 240 million, we need to position ourselves as a hub and as an integrated market of 1.5 billion. And
That's
to do
true.
that, it means integration of market. And this is actually our vision, transforming Africa into a single digital market.
But then again, even that, it sounds good on paper, but can it be implemented? There's so much disparities within Africa, like power generation. You're talking about a single market, but if the power output of a country like Nigeria, it's 10 kilowatt, and you go to a country, I don't know, like Kenya, and it's 2 kilowatt per hour, those huge discrepancy limit our ability to see ourselves as a single market. So, in my opinion, we should be focusing on structural, harmonization in terms of, power, in terms of transport infrastructure, in terms of, shipping lines and African shipping lines. That's something that I've always advocated about because right now, let me tell you guys, if you a producer in Kenya and you want to sell your goods in Ghana, it will take you probably 6 months because the boat will go to China first, will go to the US first, and then come back to Kenya. To Ghana, you as a seller from Kenya, you want to sell your product to Ghana. It takes too much time. So we need to focus on those structural infrastructure first. We have, an integrated transport system. We have a solid, reliable power generation system across the continent. Then we can talk about harmonization, guys. Let's not put the mule before the after at the back of the cart. The mule should be in the front. So, and the mule right here is the power generation. Those policy harmonization. If there's no, um, if there's no power, if there's still discrepancy between within the continent, it's a lost cause, in my opinion, to see ourselves as a single market.
We will not be able to do that without a policy harmonization. ICT, telecom policy harmonization, data governance, cybersecurity, even the AI.
Then, as I say, we need to harmonize our power output first, our capability to generate energy. Because let me tell you something. I'm not open a plant or a warehouse in a country when I know the light will be flickering every other day. You know, I'll go to Ghana, I'll go to Kenya. If it's the same, it has to be the same everywhere for us to see the market the continent as a single entity, single market, like the European Union or China in terms of population.
We need to harmonize policy so that we can be seen. So, because one thing the investor do not like is unpredictability. You have one law working for Cameroon, you have a different law working for Nigeria, you have a different law working for Ghana. And that's actually the bedrock of what we do on a daily basis, which is a policy harmonization to make sure we have the common denominator among the countries which actually address issues relating to attracting a private sector.
Indeed. So we have policy harmonization, or our policies are in place. We understand we are supposed to do business, but let us look at domestic mobilization in terms of funding, fund
Mhm,
allocation, looking inwardly at partnerships over aid reliance. How best can Africa do that?
Good
And
question.
today, my answer would have been different last year, but in today's market, with the difficulty accessing the capital market, it is time for Africa to turn around to our regional banks.
True, true. Again, guys, I've been advocating about domestic capital, domestic investors, domestic banks, about the African Finance Corporation dedicated to infrastructure financing and so forth. Those type of entity they need to go more mainstream. They need to finance projects all over the continent with local and domestic funds. We cannot rely on foreign capital, guys. It will exacerbate our dependence and hamper our independence. What we want is to be independent. And from independence, we can now grow to dominate.
I'm talking about AFDB. talking Africa 50, I'm talking
Yeah.
about BOAD, I'm talking about Badia, I'm talking about African Bank. Because these are the people who know us, who trust us.
That's true. As a local African bank, you're actually invested to see the government to see the continent, thriving. As a foreign bank, all you care about is the protection of your principal and interest, protection of your capital. You're not going to be as lenient if you invested in the future of that country compared to like a local bank using domestic capital with the intention like, oh, my son might use that road. You see what I'm saying? It has to be local.
It's very important. Because how can you actually explain a continent which actually controls close to 40% of the world reserve, we still been taxing with something called de-risking?
Yeah, but we are
The
risky.
international finance team, they might see Africa as a risky,
Mm.
but those regional banks, they see us as an opportunity. You see, there's a big difference.
Wow. That's a great analogy. From risk to opportunity. Some of them, those actually all of them, they see us as risky. But for us, the continent as a land of opportunity. So the risk profile, it's already shifted. When you look at the same coin but different faces. Opportunity versus risk. When winning opportunity, there is risk, but it also kind of uh, uh, envisage success. But when there's risk, you don't envisage success. You just envisage protection of your capital. Meanwhile, we need to take those risks because the returns are there.
Looking at our continent as a market is one thing, looking at our continent as a partner is another thing. When you look at the market as a market, you're sitting outside
Mm,
with all our sovereignty.
mm,
All what's interesting to you is to basically be able to milk it. But when you
exactly.
partner, you're actually on the ground, trusting us,
Yeah.
working with us day by day.
Yeah.
So, for financing our domestic,
You have a
I'll
different
say
view
this
of the
again,
market when you're on the
it's
ground.
time we go back to our regional banks because they are the one who knows actually the real market. They
Hmm.
believe us. They're not seeing us as a risky, and it's very important
Mm.
to basically to be looking inward and optimizing our own resources that we have.
Indeed, indeed. And also,
Indeed, indeed.
data is becoming an important or aspect in terms, as an economic asset. So, how are you, working to build secure, interoperable, digital ecosystems that at the same time can drive growth in sectors like energy and even financial sectors?
Good question.
Mm.
Two things. You know, close to 70% of economy in Africa is informal. We need digital identification for
Yeah.
our small and medium enterprises, one. But before that, those small and medium enterprises belong to someone. We need a digital ID. These are the foundations for
I
trust
agree.
in Africa.
I agree. And in Africa, the cell phone, it's very democratic. I'm pretty sure 90% of the African continent, of the African population has a cell. We can find ways to identify people because, guys, in finance, what you care about is the character, is the individual. Even if you're lending to a company, you need to know who are the owners of of that company, who are the beneficial owners of that company, who are the leaders of that company. So there's always characters involved, like characters in terms of individual.
Let me tell you this. The financial industry, they are not into managing money. They're into managing risk.
So,
And the risk, you can only remove the burden of the risk by building the trust and transparency. And
so
trust and transparency, number one, is a KYC, know your
know your
customer.
client,
So
know
Smart
your
Africa,
customer.
we embarked on the Smart Africa Digital Academy, which is digital ID interoperability project as one of the flagship led by Benin. Today, we have 16 countries who signed up for a declaration to say we are ready to interoperate our digital ID to build the trust and transparency among ourselves. And the first pilot will be between Rwanda and, uh, and Benin.
That will be huge because it will definitely accelerate capital flows within the continent. Let's say you're a bank in Benin, like this guy is talking about, and Rwanda. If you have interoperability between the two countries, you're able to identify your customer in Rwanda and lend money to him, move capital to him for investment and develop his own country, and you get your interest back in return. So this is it's gonna be huge. I'm totally a proponent of this. It has to work. Good for you, Lassina. Oops, I muted the video.
See that tech ship?
We're hoping in less than a year we'll get some results out of those pilots.
Yeah, pretty sure it's
Like a
gonna
long-term
show result.
partnership, like
On
what
the
impact
on the long term, of course, the beginning is just these two years. In the beginning, the first cluster is actually Rwanda, Benin, Togo, Ghana, and Senegal. Once we start with the two countries, we'll move to 5 countries, then we'll move to 16 countries, and the country will start joining in as we see the result moving forward. That will build the bedrock of the trust. Once we do that, all what you're talking about, which is energy, which is financial sector, which is insurance sector, healthcare sector, it all boils down to data exchange and data interoperability. Data exchange means the data you're exchanging across border belongs to someone. Those persons are identified digitally.
Wow, wow. Good for you, Smart. I hope this project comes to life. I hope the entire continent is able to the policy, and you know, that will boost our transformation, digital transformation, economic transformation. All right, guys, this is the first capital Kemet React. You guys let me know what you think in the comment, and if you like this format of video, and we'll continue trying to provide good content for you guys. All right, see you in the next one.